So Cam, who regularly chirps anybody who does anything that doesn't revolve around him, just in life in general. This has to do with him pitting people against each other in contests of athleticism.
The pot stirrer. He'll stir it up.
Yeah, he makes the entire world revolve around his axis. Basically has manufactured this entire morning around what's good for him. So I'm sitting at home, 7 o'clock in the morning, just kind of getting rocking. And you're like, hey, can you come in and do the show?
How's about some morning radio?
I was like, well, I mean, yeah, my conversation with myself is, physically I can. I'm able to. Now,
do you want to is a different question.
Have I done anything to prepare for this today? Did I watch anything last night that we might talk about on this somewhat hockey-centric program? No, I did not watch the game last night. I just didn't. I did watch the Cardinals, but I'm not going to talk about the Cardinals right now because he instructed us to do it as if he said, oh, you guys just talk about the Cardinals
You
or
guys
something.
play here. I'm going to be back. That's what it was.
That's what it was. I got to go because the big national program needs me to talk about the Panthers.
Yeah.
And mainly because, I'm sorry, they actually want to talk to him about Steener.
Well, that makes sense.
They want to talk about the changes, the Blues. Which, by
and
the
then
way,
we get to talk about, too, after he's done with them.
Oh, we're going to definitely talk about it.
They get the good stuff, though.
But my thing about it is that it's interesting that the Blues pull a lever like that in the middle of the Stanley Cup Finals because it's almost frowned upon in almost every other sport to make newsways while you're on the biggest platform of the year for you. So does that say more about the fact that the NHL is like, nobody's paying attention to this, just go ahead and do what you need to do?
That's not a bad call. I think there might be something to that.
Or does the league just not care? Like, are they just like, whatever? I mean,
it's not
you
that
gotta
deep.
Do something, you got to do something.
Usually, they, like you said, they frown on it.
Yeah.
And I found out, let's see, yesterday was Thursday, so I found out at like 10 o'clock on Wednesday, I got ahead, hey, there's a press conference. I'm like, we're doing what? The finals going on. You don't do things like that during the final.
Usually.
You can wait till Monday.
Right.
Because guess what? This thing's going to be over by the weekend.
I mean, it's just a succession plan, too. I mean, I think it's fascinating. There's things about it I want to get into. And definitely will wait.
I like
wait for Cam for that.
But PR move, I'm sure the league went.
But we do see that. Like, for instance, all the Dan Hurley stuff, that was happening during the NBA Finals.
Yeah, but I mean, I
a little
think
more organic, though.
I think that's more the device of you can search for things, but like actually announcing things and doing it and all that, I think is a different thing. I also think that the Dan Hurley thing is different because, I mean, that actually has ramifications on a completely different program, if you will. But I still don't think that even if they went and had that interview, so-called or whatnot, that they would have announced that in the middle of the finals. I think it would have still got stalled out. Sides are still talking, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because you see personnel moves. You see people get fired all the time.
Sure.
And you see things like that. But I can remember back in the day when the A-Rod thing happened in the middle of the World Series, and granted, that was the Rockies and the Yankees. So, again, a little bit of, all right, fine.
Let's spice it up.
It's the Yankees, but we need a little bit more. That it was, hey, what the hell is going on here? But, I don't know. Every league's different. Every league does its thing a little bit differently. There's parts of this that, I don't know. I mean, I think that this is, to your point, Jimmy, I heard you make it on my way in, is that, boy, they really could have used that Rangers being in the finals.
Absolutely, but you know what?
They don't get
the best team on the ice. Yep. The best team on the ice is winning this thing.
Oh, without a doubt. I think this would have happened. I think this would have been the case. I mean, hey, Edmonton's not showing up. I mean, it might have been the case no matter what.
I know, like ESPN loves the Rangers. That's the most overrated franchise in history.
More than the Knicks.
They have won
who they inhabit the building with.
Stanley Cup in like 80 years.
Ooh, most overrated franchise is a. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys most certainly or probably are running away with that.
Yeah.
But the New York Knicks have to be there. The Rangers have to be there. God, who's the most overrated baseball franchise? Is it,
might be here now. They're leaning that way.
The Cardinals?
They're leaning that way.
Are they rated anymore? Or
I mean, anytime you roll out and say we're the most winningest team in National League history, and that's your calling card.
Well, but what about, so like the Dodgers got the title in 2020, but if you're just talking more recently, that's...
I mean, they win 100 games a year, though.
What about both teams that are playing at Wrigley Field today?
They
could be both candidates.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know how rated the Cubs really are, though, like across decades.
I mean, they're still one of the top 5 most popular teams.
Popular, but they're a different vibe. They're called lovable losers.
Same thing as the Cowboys, though. I mean, I think that when you talk about being overrated,
it's the Cowboys.
Isn't a talent assessment. It's a conversations that you're in, and I hear about you, so
it's the Cowboys. But that's the.
It's the Cow. I mean, I think it's the Cowboys, and then I think it's either the Knicks or the Rangers after that, though.
And then Oklahoma football.
The Knicks haven't won a championship in my life.
That would have been 70 whatever mid.
They won 74, I think.
Yeah, they were 74,
something like that. I mean, they've gone to the finals twice in my lifetime, and that's it. And I didn't just get here. It's been a while. I mean, we're closer to half a century than a couple of decades, and that just is what it is. I don't know. I mean, for a long time, I felt like growing up, it was the Red Sox, who I'd just hear about forever. Yeah. And then it was just like, why is this team so popular? And you go back and you look at it and you're like, okay, they've had a lot of stars. They're in Boston, et cetera. But I mean, yeah, I think the Cowboys.
It's got to be them.
But the Rangers, I mean, listen, you've got 3 franchises.
From a hockey standpoint, for me, it's the Rangers.
You've got 3 franchises that I think that just kind of stand out in that space in the NHL. You got the Rangers. You've got, even though they're just down bad, Legacy. They're like the Notre Dame football of NHL.
I was going to say, if you go college, then
I
was
going to say the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, now they're a shamble of what
they're just in the dumps. I mean, that's probably the most degraded dynasty in all of sports right now.
And really, nobody feels sorry for them.
No,
you just go, yeah, okay.
Well, and then finally, in their own very unique island, are the Maple Leafs, who are like the Cowboys of the NHL.
And I love that too. Every year when they lose, they've won one round of the playoffs since 2006.
Yeah, something stupid like that.
And every year you hear, well, this is the year of the Leafs. Go, you guys got to win a round before you think about winning a Stanley Cup, people.
I will say this, though, that the St. Louis Cardinals probably are the most downtrodden dynasty in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, right now they might be.
Just based on your standard. I mean, some of these teams that we're talking about have just been down bad for so long. But when you look at your standard, and even your recent standard, I mean, it's not like you've got generations of people here. Brendan, you're probably part of this generation that never really saw them bad.
No, man. McGuire 98 was kind of my first stuff I can remember being, and I was like 4 or 5 years old, but I was locked in on that.
So it's kind of like what now Patriots fans are starting to go through.
Yeah,
where they're looking at it and they're just like, we've never been bad. It's like, well, I mean, yeah,
not while you were
the
here,
Patriots were awful for half my life.
Yeah,
like,
they were
awful. You know what? Another dynasty that's down bad like that, and this is one that's just famous long term. When I think NFL is the Bears, they're famous because of where they're at. And because of their history and how long they've been around. But nothing good has happened there in a long time. And I'm really fascinated to see that team on Hard Knocks this year. I think Hard Knocks has taken a dive somewhat, but I think the Bears are another one of those franchises that you look at and you're just like, oh.
And it depends on your perspective, because my age, Bears have been to 1 Super Bowl, the one against the Colts.
Right.
And obviously didn't win it.
The Bears are probably like what the Red Sox were for me growing up for you, where I hear about them forever, although they didn't win since my grandfather was a kid up until, 2004. But I mean, I've lived long enough now to see the Red Sox and the Cubs win World Series, which was just something that was unheard of for the majority of my life. So I guess the Guardians are on deck now. The Rangers got one finally.
Yeah.
I guess it's the Mariners and the Brewers are treading water now, and they're both in first place. So who knows? What's it looking like?
Yeah, I don't know that I'm seeing it for either of those teams.
I'm not buying anything from either one of them right now.
Why is it that we do that with the Brewers though? Because they do seem to be sort of the model organization of the NL Central lately. It's not flashy, but they. Like every year we're kind of like, yeah, the Brewers, let's count them out, but then they're there.
Well,
they're
because,
I
mean, I think that you still look at the team and you say, what's special about the team? When I think about somebody winning a championship, I say, what's special about that team? And I think this Brewers team is a solid club that really benefits from being surrounded by mediocrity.
It's the Central, yeah.
I think if you took this Brewers team, you put it in the East or in the West, that, I mean, even just looking at the records with the Brewers, so basically look at it this way. Are the Padres, Giants, and Diamondbacks and the Rockies a better group than the Cardinals, Reds, Cubs, and Pirates?
Maybe. I mean, the Padres are above 500. They're the only team from that group that can claim that.
Yeah, two games up. First of all, let me preface this by saying I think that the National League is woefully mediocre.
Yes,
across the board. I mean, when you look at the East, you've got two good teams in the Braves and in the Phillies, and then it falls
Braves
off.
Are slide.
I mean, and now they're taking, and we knew this was going to. I mean, you don't lose Ronald Acuna and just
the pitching that they've lost.
Yeah,
too.
I mean, they're losing. They're losing on both sides. My thing is sometimes that you can make up for it if you lose offense. You can make up for it if you lose pitching.
Can't lose both.
You can't lose both. You definitely can't lose people in the middle of the mix like that. But I still would think that the Braves would probably be in first place in the NL Central.
I agree with that.
So it's not a knock against the Brewers. I mean, I think honestly, if I had to take either team, I'd take the Mariners over the Brewers if we're looking at those two kind of downtrodden long-term teams like that.
Mariners got a lot of good young pitching.
Good Lord.
Pitching,
and they've got a guy that's probably on the short list of if you got to start a franchise today, who would you build it around?
He's been down a little though this year, hasn't he?
You going to pass if he's out there?
No, I'm not going to pass if he's out there. Who would you take if you 1-1? Who would you take right now? I guess I'll let you pick Ohtani, but then I want to hear your answer after you say Ohtani.
Who would I take? Well, give me
starting a franchise.
Well, what am I doing? Am I? What's the window I'm building this franchise in?
How do you view it? They're redrafting this All-Star break.
So I'm building.
Up.
I'm going to say I want a guy that is going to give me 5 years because I think if you're telling me that I had to take a guy long term, I'm going to be looking at guys I can control financially.
Well, are you selling after 5 years, or are you in it for the long haul, like the DeWitts?
We'll see. It's good that we compete every. No, I want to win.
All right.
Man, there's a lot of guys that are on that list that I look around and I'd get excited about. I would say it'd be hard pressed for me to name 5 guys over Julio Rodriguez. I mean,
670 OPS this year, though. It's not to say that he's going to be that forever.
It's okay. What's he, 20? What's he, 24, 23?
If that, man.
He's,
23.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm buying high on that.
If
this is my buy low on J, if there's such a thing as a buy low on J-Rod,
this would be the time.
This is it. I mean, if I had to answer that question, I mean, I think obviously Ohtani is where I start. I don't care.
Yeah,
but what it is.
So who else? Let's talk about the other young talents because he breaks.
Well, I mean,
this game.
if we're talking about young, I mean, where are we at on Mookie Betts' window?
Well,
I mean,
he would be.
I bet he's in the conversation.
I bet he's a first-round pick.
He has to be in the conversation.
He's top 30.
Acuna's in that conversation. If we're just throwing health out the window,
I'm going with this guy.
I'm not doing Bobby Witt.
Not Bobby Witt?
It's not Bobby Witt for me.
That's my answer.
He's got a lot of tools, and there's a lot of things about him. I mean, he would be. I don't know if he'd be on my. Would he be on my top 5?
He's got an OPS almost 300 points higher.
But I'm not a numbers guy, though. I mean, it is what it is.
The numbers.
I'm looking at.
Don't need those.
I'm looking at numbers can be indicators, but in this day and age, you'll have people tell you that numbers don't matter. Certain numbers don't matter about certain things.
I feel you.
So it's all about what you value. So I mean, if I'm looking at what I'm going to get long term. Let me do this. I'm going to flip this and turn it around. So my answer is going to be if I'm doing that today, I'm throwing everything out the window. It's Ronald Acuna.
Okay.
If it's not Ohtani, that's my answer.
I like it.
But if I could count on his contact a little bit more, I still get excited by what De La Cruz could be if he turned into.
That's a good point too.
But if there was a guy on the Cardinals that you had to hedge your bets for over the next 5 years right now, who would it be?
Like as part of this game, if you're starting a franchise, you're like, that's the one Cardinal that I got to have?
Yeah.
I mean, it might be Mason Wynn.
I think it is.
Yeah. I can't think of anybody that's more obvious.
I think Mason Wynn has subtly become the guy who's kind of the axis
Hello,
going
I'm the
forward.
franchise player. Yeah.
I mean, and the funny thing about it is this is a guy that last year I sat in this very room and debated people about his viability as a long-term piece.
Oh, yeah?
And said that I'm not betting it. I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't do that. And I said, now you look at him and he's undeniable. I mean, he's the guy that's showing up every day. He's doing it at a position that honestly, the Cardinals haven't been set at shortstop in a long time.
Edgar Renteria?
Yeah,
is probably the last legitimate.
That's a free agent ad that you bring in. You do it. I mean, I think Mason Wynn is probably honestly the easy answer.
Yes,
and I don't know what you do second. I mean, I guess maybe you still say Wilson Contreras was still in his prime.
If you're talking like 5 years, but even what is he as a catcher?
5 years, he won't even have a contract.
No,
with the
you're
team
right.
Anymore,
so maybe not him.
I mean, I guess I'm not selling the farm on Jordan Walker. I'm just not. I mean, again, when you talk about, I don't give up on guys at 23 or so. Dylan Carlson has hit the give up window for me.
Yeah.
That's
25 years old.
It is what it is. You've seen it enough to know what it's going to be at this point. But I think I'm not passing on Jordan Walker. I think there's still some things I've obviously got to get worked out.
But is he your second answer behind Mason Wynn?
I mean, if I get to use the entire organization.
You can. Let's let you do that. Yeah.
It really depends on where you stand on like Tink Hintz or Tekoa Roby or somebody like that.
Wouldn't be Roby for me. Hintz could have a chance.
I want to know what Tink is going to be.
Starter, reliever.
Like, what's
his makeup?
Yeah, like what's that going to be? I mean, honestly, this draft is really important because my second
might be
answer,
the number 7
might be the number 7
that
pick.
number 7 overall selection, the college pitcher they take.
Who could be a pretty good option for him, honestly. No matter what happens in the next month or so, the Cardinals are going to get something they woefully need in a big way. There's a lot of big college bats this year. I'm on the side of fast track pitching if you can do it.
I would agree with that.
But I mean, I won't be mad. There's certain guys I don't want a high school guy at 7.
No, you have to take somebody closer.
I would want somebody that I know that in 3 years or so can be contributing to the team.
Maybe even less. I agree with that. Okay, so from the roster though, let me ask you about 2 names. Again, we're in agreement on this. It's Mason Wynn, number 1. Mm-hmm. Do you give consideration to Nolan Gorman and the other name I'm going to bring up, and this one's going to be a little controversial, Lars Nootbaar?
I think it's Nolan over Lars for me.
I think that's where it's at right now.
I think Lars is kind of at the intersection of whether he's a 4, if he's a 3rd/4th outfielder.
The fork in the road is Dylan Carlson to the left, and to the right you can go and be a perennial all-star.
We're at the Randall Grichuk divider right now, and hopefully we're not at the Tyler O'Neill line, where it's, boy, when he's out there, he's doing it. But even when he's out there this year, it's not been the greatest returns on there.
No, but that's also kind of the Dylan line too, because Carlson's had injuries upon injuries.
Would you put more stock right now if you had to keep 2 of the 3 of these guys, Lars, Brendan Donovan, and Gorman?
In the offseason, I was Lars and Donovan because I just thought, we're talking about injuries, I thought, well, if Nolan's always going to deal with the back, and I know he's done a nice enough job at second, but he's not. I mean, he's made some errors here. He's got a great arm for second, but what is it going to be defensively and the consistency of it? It just depends on how you want to build your team, honestly. That's a really tough question. I'm a big Brendan Donovan believer, so I might still say Lars and Donovan, but
I think that I still go, when it's that close for me, I go with the biggest raw tool. Yeah. And I'm going to go with the left-handed power still in that one. I think Donovan does more for me as far as when I'm trying to construct a roster, but there's also a little bit of redundancy with him and Gorman, whereas his second position would be where you need Gorman to be at unless you're just going to DH him. I think that's also an option for Gorman, even though I just think you're going to see, I think traditional philosophy says you don't just relegate guys that are in their 20s to be DHs. I'm like, why not? I mean, it's a position now. I mean, it's a position everywhere. It's not a retirement home anymore.
You could do it.
And you can still get him, rotate him in where he needs to be. But I also think you've got other guys that are coming along who can kind of fill that super utility role. You've got Sagis, who's down there. Did I get that one right? Sajasi, thank you. You've got him coming along who's looking like a 4 or 5 position guy that you went out and added, and he's a fast-track guy.
Brendan Donovan Jr., basically.
I mean, Tommy Edman Jr. You've got all these guys that kind of just do the same thing on the roster, and then you still got guys like Burleson, who's, quietly become a...
I don't know how far up the list you move him, but he's
top 5.
You talk about left-handed power and also contact that Gorman doesn't have. Gorman strikes out, and he could slump for that reason.
I just think that this furthers the point that what the Cardinals have is a lot of the same guy.
Yeah.
And the problem they're having this year is that the same guy isn't necessarily performing at a high level where you can say, all right, we decided which ones we're going to move out.
You can never delineate between them.
It's just the same guy no matter what. With the exception of Mason Wynn, who's most certainly a very different
guy, and for good reason. They've got something they can really hang their hat on with him.
Yeah.
He's answered the bell in ways that, we knew he would be solid, but what he's been able to do already is just huge for the organization.
Where does Ivan Herrera check in at as
far
as
what?
Projectability?
Is he a catcher that's going to be able to do this? Because when you're talking about deficient throwing arm, and Ollie Marmol, I was surprised to hear him say he's deficient in throwing the ball right now.
Yeah.
And he's not wrong.
And I don't think it's new news either.
It's not new news.
I mean, it's been the story coming up along the entire way.
Even long before he was up. It was a work in progress.
Which doesn't surprise, because, you went to go get Wilson Contreras to contribute now.
Because they saw Herrera was like, oh, he's not going to be ready by the time Yachty
he's not going to be
leaves.
ready to catch and be all that inside out. But now you've got both of them on the same lineup. And I truly believe Herrera, if given the opportunity, can be a guy that can hit for you regularly.
I think so.
I think the bigger question for me is, the biggest question, period, on the Cardinals roster right now, outside of, obviously, where do you find consistency and what it looks at, what is the future at first base?
Yeah, because you got to make a Goldie decision coming up in this offseason, and it could just be Alec Burleson as the answer.
Damn it. I just realized that we end up talking about baseball.
It's exactly what he wanted.
That's what I got.
It's exactly what he wanted.
I got you, didn't I?
Well, we chirped you. We took care of you. We took care of you
Well,
first.
you should. Well, you should.
So what happens there is going to have a lot to do with everything. I mean, that's millions and millions and millions of dollars.
What would you do?
You can decide where it goes. I don't know. We're looking at
220. Goldie homered yesterday.
Yes, he did.
226 with a 653 OPS right now.
He's Paul Goldschmidt. Hey, you don't mind OPS when it comes to Julio Rodriguez, so
I don't care about it when I'm. There's a little different than projecting a 23-year-old.
I'm just kidding.
Who's better, Gunnar or Witt?
Well, I was going to say Gunnar would be the other one when I went with Bobby Witt.
But honestly, if I took anybody, if I took anybody on that roster,
I got them both on the same fantasy team.
I would be taking Adley Rutschman.
Really?
Yeah.
So
yeah, that,
it is
to answer that catcher question is valuable.
I mean,
he's only 26.
That's it for me. If I took anybody on that team, it would be Rutschman.
He's the leader in the clubhouse.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. For sure. So did they treat you nice?
Yeah, they're always great, man.
Did they pump your tires? Did they get into the whole thing?
Oh, I bring the heat, dude. We always talk about fighting off the bat because they'll look up some of my fights and they're like, well, Brian Burke was on before and he knew I was coming on, and Burke's like, hey, ask Cam about that fight with Jordan Smith back in 2004 during the lockout. I'm like, let me try to remember that one. Oh yeah, we went for like 3 minutes, but those guys. Well, they're asking about Tatum and Matthew. I'm like, they asked are they getting a lot of publicity? And I go, hell yeah.
Well, I was just listening to the presser that Jason had talking about Matthew. Where he was saying, hey, I was watching the games. I'm trying to kind of figure out like the rules and what's going on in hockey, but he's like, I love him. That's my guy.
That's awesome.
Et cetera. So yeah.
He's like, can they punch each other like that? What's going on?
Oh yeah, there? You can.
He turned. But he turned in. He says, yeah, man, I'm watching him. He said he watched game 2. He's like, man, I'm watching him, seeing what he's got going on.
Did you go to a lot of Blues games when you were a kid?
Yeah, at the arena for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you went when I was playing too?
No, I was in college while you were playing.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
That was.
Yeah, it was. They do punch each other, Jason, and you could high stick each other. You could cross check each other. You could elbow. You could hit from behind. Hell, you could step on somebody like Chris Simon did. Oh right, my! Yeah. And actually, not just Chris Simon, rest in peace. Chris Pronger did too, and got dinged for I think 7 games. Remember he did that? He was mean.
He was real mean.
But mean.
That's how he got his space.
He was mean. He wasn't off the bat. When he first got here, I remember he kind of had he got chirped so bad by the fans. Well, you had stud boy Brendan Shanahan, who everybody loved.
Who you're named
especially
after,
the women
correct?
folk.
There's a story behind that, actually. The answer is no, but there is a story. If we
really?
Want to tell it. Well,
Shanny?
It was not named after him, and it's actually spelled different. He's A-N, I'm E-N, but he was.
You sure about that? Because the text line says you're A-N.
I know. Well, they actually say I'm B-R-A-N-D-O-N.
What if your middle name was Craig? That'd be something.
But no.
We had him on the pod.
That's pretty good.
We had him on the pod.
That's
talked
pretty
about
good.
He talked about it.
The brief story is that not named after him, but that I guess the name was getting a little more popular at the time, and now there are some other Brendans around there my age. But to tease the name, my dad handed someone in my family a sports page from that day and said, the name's somewhere in here if you want to know what we're naming the baby boy. And that was but because of Brendan Shanahan, whose name was in the paper probably a lot in those days. But yeah, different spelling, but that's the quick quip on that.
Where'd you get Gabriel?
We just talked and came up with it. It was kind of weird, independent of one another. We both thought it, I think my wife might have even said it first. And it was funny, too, because we waited to decide. We had a girl name that we thought we were going to lock in on, and the boy name took forever. We didn't find out the sex of the baby until the baby was born. Like, we just didn't know. No gender reveal.
Was that exciting?
It was awesome, and we would
Didn't
do
make
it.
it hard to shop, though.
No gender reveal? Like, you didn't go to the woods and light a forest fire on fire?
No forest fires, and we didn't even know ourselves until the baby came out, and I called it in the air like you do.
It's a boy. Like, that happened. I'm letting you know right now. When that day comes around for me, I'm coming out back your house with all that wildlife, and I'm just gonna poof, 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 and it's just gonna be just
everywhere.
Fire. It's gonna look like, good Lord, did somebody hit a home run?
You're gonna know.
Yeah,
you're gonna know.
My house will burn down.
Hey, Cam, we're not naming it Cam. Poof, poof.
The Bears out my house are gonna.
The Bears are gonna be back there. They're gonna be back there doing the Ray Lewis dance behind me. They're gonna be getting it in.
Yeah, Jimmy, dude, we got bears in our backyard. Black bears.
They're around.
Yeah. And mountain lions. Yeah. Well, it was guys were golfing the other day, and a little cubby was cruising trying to find his mama on hole 2 on
That's
Tapper.
where you got to be careful.
Goodness.
You got to be careful when you get the cubs.
They're coming up from the south.
Yep.
They're following the rivers up from Arkansas and things like that, not from the north. They're coming from the south. It's really weird.
My mom lives down there. They got to keep an eye out for.
You got to watch out for them.
You better put your trash away.
Yeah, watch out for them southern bears.
Them southern bears. Well, those Jersey bears are out there too in Jersey. There's
Really?
so many
In Jersey?
Yes, they are overpopulated in Jersey.
There's a lot of rural parts up there,
yes,
you know?
The Pine Barrens.
You don't think about it.
They live there, and they creep down following all the trash and stuff like that. Then it becomes really populated, and they're stuck in people's backyards. They're getting in their houses
They
and their
get them
pools.
involved with their gender reveals. It's a whole thing out that way.
The Bears are part of it. Actually, the Bears are having gender reveals. They're having gender reveals like, hey, guys, come and see Lil Yogi. What was Yogi's partner? The little bitty one.
I don't know.
Boo Boo.
Boo Boo.
Who you named your cat after.
Exactly. How do I not know that?
Pretty good.
How do I not know
that? He was kind of teeing you up for it.
See what happens here.
Oh, man,
Didn't work out. But no, I would say I recommend not finding out. It was a lot of fun to
Oh, really?
But it went up to the bell with the name. I think we were at Breadco before we were going into the hospital.
Oh.
And we go, hey, if it's a boy, are we going, like, we're going with Gabriel? We're like, yeah, let's do it.
You're going to name it Sourdough.
No, we did not.
The flatbread.
Yeah. We did not.
Panini.
Okay.
Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. Even you, Cam, because I know Kate calls you daddy all the time. She does. I was going to ask you for a list of the hottest TV dads, but then I remember that question's for Tim McKernan lastly. I'm still very mad that the Battlehawks aren't in the championship, but at least Cole and Nate have a chance to snag some big girl Bahamas and Stallion fans. Easiest layup they'll ever get. Mailman Anthony. Yeah, I don't know if those guys are going to be going to that game.
Probably not.
I don't know if I know anybody that's going to that game.
I'd be curious if they get
what do you think?
4,000 people.
Rennie not asked.
Really?
6,500.
$4 tickets.
Is it
$4 tickets.
Yeah.
Rennie not asked on his Facebook the other day, and it seemed divided at best. But there were a few people that felt civic responsibility to show up.
I do not.
And go do the thing.
What is the beer prices? They could lower the beer prices, get people in there maybe. Something.
Buy one, get one free.
The NFL haters will show up just because they want to.
I tell you what.
Buy one, get one free. That will attract a lot of people.
That would work on me.
Pretty nice.
Pretty
nice season ticket suite, though. Not going to lie. The only game I went to was sat up in the things with the seats and all that. It was pretty nice.
Did you go to the Mizzou Memphis game there?
I did not. No.
That was a lot of fun, man.
I do that.
I want to see more, dude. I want to see more of that kind of stuff, and I'll make Cam come and we'll do a suite or something because
I want them to be profitable. I love Anthony Beck. I think he's a great guy, man.
Yeah,
I do. I think he's great. I heard that people were complaining about some of his play calling and some of his decision making.
You get a little in the weeds.
You know what I'm talking about, that, Jimmy?
Yeah.
Like, did he do I don't know exactly what it was, but people were complaining about a couple things that he did or did not do in that particular game.
Clock management late was a little weird, but you know what? You didn't score anyway, so it didn't matter.
He didn't score.
You weren't going to win that game.
He couldn't. AJ McCarron couldn't move. Like they tried to do that. Was it that triple option thing? Or whatever?
He got popped at halftime too, like right before the half.
The offense struggled down the stretch for them. They were not the same team they were early.
And whenever the offense is bad, the product's bad. Mm-hmm. It is. You know what I mean? Like they're just like stuck at the 50-yard line. Like boom.
You could put that
boom.
on a pillow for the St. Louis Rams the last decade they were here.
Yeah, that's right. But I remember like they interviewed AJ McCarron before the game. They're like, hey, how's that? How do you feel about that ankle? He's like, it's as good as it's going to get. I'm like, yeah, it's over. It's over.
I don't know what they shot him up with at halftime, but he was moving pretty good when he came out at halftime. He was not walking at all when he went in. So
it just but
they did the
that only goes so far.
They did the varsity blues for him.
Yeah, I think so.
Hold him down.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys playing right now that are shot up with some stuff.
He may be done though. That might be his last go around.
He made a ton of money, didn't he?
He did all right. He did all right. He didn't make a lot of money. He did.
He sent a big.
He was on an NFL roster for a while, but I don't think he'll be back.
AJ will make a lot of money back down in Alabama if he needs to, though.
Absolutely,
he's gold down there.
That's it. You can go.
He'll
back
be
down
like
there.
He'll be like the John Sunvold of Tuscaloosa.
They covered the Battlehawks down there with the Alabama paper like you wouldn't believe because of AJ
McCarron.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
There were radio stations down there that wanted to talk about it.
Just
like,
because
yeah, you want to come on and talk? I was like, I would, but I was doing something else that day. But I was like, I'm kind of surprised you're asking. Yeah, we're fired up about it down here. Okay.
If you're a football player and you play for one of those big Alabama or whatever, and even if you don't make the NFL, like, you could still go back down there and make some money if you want. You know what I mean? Like, people love you down there.
Those guys,
you're a made man.
That's why it's like I really got into college football last year. Hell, we're hosting parties watching Mizzou. I got into it.
Really?
So, yeah, you were there only for an hour.
What?
Only for an hour. Remember
there was another one, and I didn't even get told about it.
Oh, yeah, I know.
So yeah,
that's Cole's fault.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel good.
When in doubt, you blame Cole.
Yep, for sure.